All right, today we're jumping into one of my favorite kinds of stories, a genuine historical puzzle. This is a mystery that has had scholars scratching their heads for centuries, and it all revolves around a king who shows up in one of the most famous books ever written, but seems to have completely vanished from the rest of history. So, who was this ghost king? In the book of Daniel, we get this incredible story about a ruler named Darius the Mede. You know the one. He's the king who oversees the whole Daniel in the Lion's Den episode. But here's the problem. If you go looking for him in the official records, the king lists of Babylon, he's just not there. It's like he never existed. And this sets up a huge mystery. On one hand, you've got this super detailed biblical story, but on the other, you have the official, accepted historical record of how Babylon fell. And, well, the two just don't seem to line up. At all. Okay, let's get right to the heart of the conflict. The book of Daniel, chapter 5, ends by saying, "And Darius the Mede took over the kingdom." Simple enough, right? Except every single other historical source we have, from clay tablets to ancient historians, tells us that it was Cyrus the Great of Persia who conquered Babylon in 539 BC. So what gives? Is the Bible just flat out wrong, or are we missing a really important piece of the puzzle? To figure this out, we have to put on our detective hats. The clues we're looking for aren't buried in some lost tomb. They're actually hidden in plain sight, in the tiny details of ancient language and etched into old Babylonian clay tablets. So our first huge clue comes down to a single Aramaic word, cabal. Now, some Bible translations say Darius took over the kingdom, which makes him sound like a conqueror. But, and this is a big but, the word can also mean received. That one little change in meaning flips the whole story on its head. What if Darius didn't conquer Babylon himself? What if he was given the kingdom, appointed to rule by someone with even more authority, like, say, Cyrus the Great? That little linguistic clue is what points us to the hard evidence. And our star witness in this case is a real cuneiform tablet called the Nabonidus Chronicle. It's an eyewitness account of Babylon's fall. The crazy part is, for more than 100 years, this crucial piece of evidence was totally misunderstood, all because of a massive translation blunder. Yeah, it's something scholars actually call the Pinches problem. Way back in 1882, a translator named Theophilus Pinches was working on this tablet and he accidentally mushed 3 completely different guys into one, translating all their names as Gobrius. This one mistake created a century-long historical mess, making it impossible for anyone to figure out who was really running the show in Babylon after Cyrus marched in. But once modern scholars found and fixed that mistake, the whole thing started to make sense. Looking at the tablet again, they identified 3 separate men. First, there's Ugbaru. He was the general who actually led the army into Babylon, but he died less than a month later, so probably not our guy. Second, there's Gobrios, an ally who helped the troops find their way to the palace. And finally, and this is the important one, there's Gubaru. He was the man Cyrus appointed as the powerful governor of Babylon, a guy who ended up ruling for a solid 14 years. So once you untangle those names and see these 3 different individuals, the evidence starts pointing overwhelmingly toward one of them as our so-called ghost king, Darius the Mede. Let's just lay out the case for Gubaru step by step. 1. We know for a fact that Cyrus conquered Babylon but didn't stick around. He appointed a powerful governor to rule for him. 2. The Nabonidus Chronicle, our eyewitness account, names this governor Gubaru. 3. Other historical records show Gubaru acting exactly like the biblical Darius. He appointed sub-governors, and one historian even says he ruled almost as an independent monarch. And finally, number 4, the name Darius probably wasn't even a personal name. It was likely a throne name or title, meaning something like "he who holds firm the good," a perfect title for a new governor to adopt. And if you need one more piece of evidence, here's the clincher. 14 years. That's how long Gubaru ruled Babylon. That is more than enough time for the entire dramatic story of Daniel and the Lion's Den to play out. And remember Ugbaru, the general? He was dead in less than a month. He's just not a candidate. The timeline, the actions, the name, it all fits. The Ghost King has a name, Gubaru. Okay, so now that we've put a real name and a real history to this once mysterious king, that incredible human drama from the Bible becomes so much more vivid. This is the story most of us grew up with, but now we can see exactly when and where it all happened. So just picture this. Daniel is now an old man. probably in his 80s, but he's made one of the 3 highest administrators in this massive new empire. And he's so good at his job, so full of integrity, that King Darius is planning to promote him over everybody else. Naturally, his rivals are just boiling with jealousy. They try to dig up some dirt on him, but they can't find a single thing. He's totally incorruptible. So they decide to use the one thing they can against him: his unwavering faith in God. And their trap springs with terrifying speed. One day, they go to King Darius and flatter him into signing this brand new, unchangeable law. For the next 30 days, nobody can pray to any god or human except for the king. Daniel hears about the law, and he doesn't change a thing. He goes home, opens his windows, and prays just like he always has. By the very next day, he's been caught and dragged before the king, and Darius is absolutely devastated. He realizes he's been played, but because of this law of the Medes and Persians, not even he can take it back. He's trapped. He has no choice but to sentence his best and most trusted advisor to death. The king spends the whole night agonizing. Then, at the crack of dawn, he rushes to the lion's den, and he calls out, and you can just hear the desperation in his voice. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" This moment right here is the absolute climax of the story, and it's where we get the ultimate takeaway, a powerful message about where true power really comes from. And then out of the darkness of that pit, a voice replies, "It's Daniel. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight." It's real. The miracle happened. Well, the aftermath is swift and brutal. Daniel is pulled out of the den without a single scratch on him. Then, following the harsh justice of the day, the men who accused him and their families are thrown into the same den. The Bible says the lions overpowered them before they even hit the floor. It was terrifying, undeniable proof of Daniel's innocence and the power of his God. And the effect on King Darius is immediate and profound. He sends out a royal edict to his entire kingdom. Think about this stunning turnaround. The same pagan king who was just tricked into outlawing prayer to God now commands all his people to fear and reverence the God of Daniel, calling him the living God who endures forever. So why is this story so important? Why has it lasted for thousands of years? Well, its whole purpose is to make a point that even the biggest, baddest empires on earth are still under the authority of God. It's a story about God's ultimate power and about his ability to rescue people who trust in him, even when things look absolutely hopeless. And that really brings us to the final, lingering question this story leaves us with. The story of Daniel, serving under the king we now know as Gubaru, forces us all to ask, what does real integrity look like when it's pushed to the absolute limit? It's a question about courage, faith, and conviction that has echoed down through the ages, long after the great empires of Babylon and Persia have turned to dust.